How's everyone doing? Everybody have a good lunch?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Woo. Awesome. Well, welcome to our presentation, and we're going to jump right in. The presentation we're going to be going over is called Bridging the Gap. We're going to be exploring millennials. We're going to do some deep dives. We're going to do some icebreakers. It's going to be a lot of fun, so be prepared to participate. It's going to be a blast. As a quick introduction, my name is Darren Greenwald. I'm currently the Director of Quality Assurance at M3. I've been working there for 11 years, and I started off in support way back when underneath Cassie, who you met, and from there went into kind of the training route, and then in the quality assurance, working my way up. I am considered the old geezer of the millennial generation, so I was born in '98, which is right before that cutoff, so I'm currently 35. And my partner today is...
And I am Magan Mizell. If you do not know me, I'm one of the Accounting Core Training and Implementation Specialists here. I've been with the company for 4 years. I started working here as an intern in college in our professional services department. Started working there and then decided I wanted to be a staff accountant. So did that for a couple years and then realized I talked a lot. If you've ever met me, I will talk your ear off and I will talk to a wall. So decided that moving to our training and implementation department was better fit for me. So I've been doing that ever since. As you can see, I'm a young millennial. I barely made the cut. I was born in 1996, so I am 25 years old, and I made the cut by 1 month. So I am barely made it into the millennial generation, but I'm here.
And so our goals for today, kind of like I said at the beginning, we want to discuss some of the myths. We have a couple of topics that we're going to have an open forum for everybody to give their feedback on. And we really want to identify what drives the different generations, especially the millennials and the Zoomers, which is the generation after the millennials. And then also brainstorm some approaches. You were hearing earlier about employee retention, keeping them engaged. Staffing is an issue all over the country, including in the hotel industry. So really trying to come together as a collective group to come up with those answers.
So with that being said, we are an interactive session, so we're going to ask to put hands up, talk, have open forum throughout that. But before we get started too much, Darren, do you want to get the group, sort of up and ready?
So if any of you have ever done biology, you all know that serotonin's kicking in. You're like, oh, this is great. I'm going to fall asleep during this. I'm not going to be paying attention. So I want everybody to do an exercise. I'm not going to have you all stand up, but I would like everybody to raise their left hand, which would be, in case you need to know. All right? And I want you to go left and then right. Awesome. So 5 times. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I want everybody to say, wee, and keep your hand up.
Whee!
Perfect. Thank you all very much. So we are going to do an icebreaker to start off. And if you have never heard this game before, we're pitting the generations against each other. So the Gen X and Boomers is going to be one team, and the Zoomers and Millennials are going to be the other team. Now, again, this is an icebreaker, so if you're not sure where you fall, just kind of take a guess and just stay on that team for the whole time. We're not going to split up the room. But that third bullet there, if you're 1982 today, you are a millennial, or on the millennial and Zoomer team. If you're prior, well, that's backwards, I guess, but to 1981, then, or if you're older, you're Gen X. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to ask a question that the other generation wouldn't know. So we're going to be asking millennial questions to the Gen Xers and vice versa. If they do not know the answer, we're going to give the other generation a chance to get it correct. And then if you participate and get the answer right, you're going to get a ticket. We have a guy running around with a mic, and and that's Mr. Tim over there in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th row. And from there, again, this is just going to be a fun icebreaker before we get into the really serious conversation about what drives us internally, okay? Yay!
Yay!
All right, cool. So.
Okay, so question 1, which is for millennials and Zoomers. And I'll be honest, I'm a millennial and did not get this, so don't feel bad. But who was the first person to ever rap in a song? Does anyone know this? Okay. So we'll go to the other generation. So if you're not a millennial or Zoomer, do you know the answer to this question? Any guesses? You can guess, trust me. Any guesses? Snoop, Tim.
Earlier on.
Well, Tim mentioned Snoop Dogg. DJ Easy Rock. MC Hammer.
No.
Who? Running MC? No. I was like... Who said Debbie Harry?
I heard two people say it. Yeah, all right. Let's give them a round of applause. All right. Question number 2 for the boomers and Gen Xers. What was the caption of this famous meme featuring a cat? A lot of people are like, I've never seen that cat in my life. All right, we'll open up the floor to anybody. Does anybody know the answer? No. Going once, going twice. Yes, who said it?
Who said it?
Oh. Same guy. It is I Can Has Cheeseburger. This was so popular that there actually was a website called icanhascheeseburger.com, and it was literally a Facebook for cats. All right, question number 3.
Okay, question number 3 for the Millennials and Zoomers. What gaming console is this?
Atari.
Yes, it is.
Are you a millennial? Yeah, you're not a millennial.
It's okay. Hey, it's okay. You win. Yes, it is an Atari 2600.
All right, so question number 4. This is for boomers and Gen Xers. If you got rickrolled, what song began to play? That's right.
Yes.
It's over here.
Yes.
Good job. The answer is never going to give you up. An extra bonus ticket if anybody is willing to sing the initial part of that song, the main chorus. Anybody?
My coworker sings it all the time.
And how does it go?
I have no idea.
These 5 words are in the song. All right. Question.
Question number 5 for the Millennials and Zoomers. Which famous song from Romania became famous during the 2000s?
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Is that Duma Duma?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it was.
Let's give him a round of applause. Good job.
Good job, y'all.
Now you got an extra bonus ticket if you're willing to do the dance. No, you're not. Does anybody know the dance? Just by a show of hands, you don't actually have to do it. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we
She
go.
knows it. That's it. All right, question number 6 for boomers and Gen Xers. What does it mean to yeet according to Webster's dictionary?
Do what? To throw something?
That's right. Over here.
Yes.
She's correct. So, according to Webster's dictionary, yeet is a slang word for the functions broadly with the meaning to throw. And if you ever watched anybody play games online, they also yeet out of battle when they're getting attacked. They just go yeet and they fly away because they don't want to get hurt. It's a really big word that we use. Question number, whoa, no one saw that.
Question number 7, as I drop my note cards. If you log in and hear the phrase, "You've got mail," what software are you using? AOL? Yes, ma'am. It's AOL. Yes.
America Online. Everybody remember that little yellow running guy? That's right, CDs. Fun fact, my parents still paid for AOL up until about 4 years ago because they did not know that after DSL and cable and all the fancy terms now, that you didn't have to pay for the service anymore. And AOL was like, just keep sending us money. We're not going to tell you. And so now they finally get to use AOL for free.
And the funny thing is, my husband still uses an AOL account, so he doesn't have a Gmail or Yahoo. He uses AOL as his email address, so it is still being used today.
All right, so icebreakers out of the way. So now it's time to get introspective. We're going to go over 2 quick things. One is the generalizations, and just knowing a whole bunch of pieces that my partner Magan is going to go over. And then we're going to actually do questions and answers where we're going to dive in, and it's going to be an open forum so we can hear from the experience of the generations that have been in the workforce for a while, as well as the new and upcoming generations.
Yes, so with that being said, just sort of to break down four highlight generations that we're really going over today. You'll start with the baby boomers. So I want to point out just a couple big differences between the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and now the Gen Z that is coming up in our workforce. And that's going to be how we're delivering communication. So back in the day, baby boomers were using letters. They were sending letters, writing letters back and forth. It sort of moved technology, started becoming a huge part in our day-to-day operations. So we started using email, word processors. The millennials, which is what our big highlight is today, is now we're using texting, cell phones all the time. And then the Generation Z is when you start seeing those video conferences, FaceTiming. I know we are probably all familiar with GoToMeeting, Skype, Teams calls, especially after COVID. And that's sort of one of our big things that we're seeing across the board.
All right, so why are millennials such a hot topic? Number one, and this was actually mentioned earlier already today, but we are a big group of people, 2.43 billion across the globe, and by 2025, we're gonna make up 75% of the workforce. So if you guys are not already strategizing in how to make sure you're not only recruiting us, but keeping us to those positions, now's the time to start thinking about it. Second one is economic influence. We are one of the largest generations in history, so that means the way that we purchase things, like Amazon, we practically order everything on there, right? The way we spend money is going to shape and change the way that businesses have to run. You've already seen that across all the industries, the way that you're advertised to, the way that you're retargeted. All that has come up over the last decade or so. And then last but not least, we confound or do confounding leadership. So those that are in leadership positions, we usually tend to confuse them because our opinions tend to be vastly different than what the status quo was. If you think about the way that we're motivated, how communication works, instant gratification, right? You take that picture like I just did, it's on social media on LinkedIn. If I only get 2 likes, I'm gonna take it down and repost it up with a different term and hope I get 3 likes and be like, yeah, I'm popular, it's gonna be great, right? All this type of stuff matters, and so that drives directly into our work ethic as well.
So with that being said, sort of, assumption one, right? Like I'm lazy. I'm not going to pick up those note cards later, right? Just leave them on the ground. A big thing now is that millennials are lazy. But I sort of question that. Is the millennials truly actually lazy, or they just find quicker ways to get to the end solution? Nowadays, kids are using phones and Excel way before coding things, way before that they're even getting in the workforce. So I sort of challenge you to say, is it really laziness, or it's just finding a better route to the solution? So with that sort of being said, I sort of asked, and this is sort of open forum to the group, have you seen it in your workforce, or do you feel like you're seeing kids just find quicker ways and quicker new solutions to things that you might have been challenged prior? Or do you really believe that millennials are just lazy, and that assumption is truly true?
Yep, and raise your hand so that way we have a chance for our mic runner to come over and let you speak. Is there anybody that would like to break the ice?
Oh, yes.
I'm on the older side, so I'll put my daughter's 32, my son's 26, so they're full right in this range. I don't know if I'd call it laziness, because I know a lot of people in my generation that I would call lazy too. I think it's just a different way of doing it. You actually raised it right. They're on this thing all the time. They are. This is what they do, apps. If it doesn't have an app, they're not using it. And that's the way it is. So I don't know if I'd call it laziness. They just look at life a little different than the way we probably looked at it. I came up through the Vietnam War era. It was a different era. But when I look back now and I see some of the things that they're pushing, they're not much different than what they did in the Vietnam War era. I mean, it's just a different way of life and how they're looking at it. And I think we as a generation, in order to attract them and to keep them, you're going to have to learn to adjust to that. And especially this device, they love technology. They can't order it through DoorDash or something. They don't want it. But that's just the way that I look at it. All is that I don't look at them as being necessarily lazy. They want more fulfillment. They want a job to fulfill them. What am I doing? But I don't think that's any different than what we were. we were the same way. It was just a different way that the workforce was structured. So I don't look at it in any different light. I think it's the same thing. You just got to find out what actually drives them, what actually pushes them, and just try to satisfy those demands like you would with any employee.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great point. Is there anyone else to add to that? I like the assumptions on trying to truly learn your employees to take away from that.
Yeah, so one thing that was said there that I really liked was the idea that it was, and I'm trying to recall, it was near the end, but it wasn't about the laziness, right? In my mind, it's more about trust. So my previous report structure, it was about 70 people all across the world, all millennials, just in different countries. And in the US specifically, it seemed like the biggest challenge was a trust factor. The older generation, you ask them to do something, hey, this is the assignment, this is what needs to get done. The work's done. They're gonna take it, not a lot of questions. They're gonna go solve it, and then afterwards we'll talk about what the ramifications are for them and their career and things like that. The millennial generation is very different, whereas as soon as you ask the question, the what's in it for me becomes the primary. Well, why would I do that? Am I the right person for this task? What am I gonna get out of it? So there's a lack of trust in the organization that their needs are going to be met in the long term, and they want some assurances or validations before they do the additional effort that it's worth it at all, right? It was back to the point of wanting to believe in the company. It's similar to that. Absolutely,
absolutely. Did we see another hand raised over here that was adding a point earlier? I'm sorry, behind you, Tim.
I just think it's different. I'll give a really good example. So my CFO likes to print everything out. So the way she looks at GLs, she'll print out the entire GL from M3, as opposed to like me, who is a millennial. I will export it into Excel, and it's not really. I don't think it's laziness. It's just a different way we view things. And I think with the labor climate now, I think. A lot of us are being asked to do more, right? And try to satisfy other things like work-life balance and working from home and all that stuff. So I think efficiency is a better way to frame it and not necessarily laziness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anyone else that want to add to our laziness discussion? I took away a couple key things. One is really learning your own employees. I think a lot of times we don't take time to truly, I always tell people there's a difference between listening and hearing someone. I can hear a lot of things all the time, but am I truly listening to what their needs are? And then the second thing to add to that is with this millennial generation and the assumption of laziness would it be actually worth it to sit in a millennial shoe and watch them, how they work and how do they get to that Excel file quicker? I feel like that's pretty neat because I think sometimes what they call the older ways or the ways it was done before, sometimes it works and then sometimes it does need change and that action needs to be completed. So great points. So that's assumption one.
Yeah, I think there's a quote and I really don't remember who said it, but it was something like, ingenuity, the person that created the wheel wasn't due to ingenuity. The guy was lazy. He didn't want to be carrying around all this stuff, so he created a way to make everybody's lives easier. All right, number 2. No, this is not a picture of my daughter, but if you add blonde hair, it is a picture of my daughter. So, entitled is the next assumption. We desire more than we really deserve. We kind of have a sense of undeserved accomplishment. We expect promotions faster. We expect them almost year after year. Some of the reviews that I do, they just got promoted last year, and the next review comes around, and where's the next one, right? We're hungry, we're looking for more. And so because if we don't get it, we tend to leave companies. We're a little bit more nomadic. We jump back and forth between companies to see where we're connected. And also going back to that instant gratification, something that's unique with our generation is that we are constantly comparing ourselves to others, whether it's our own peers at work or if it's someone else that we're friends with outside of work, whether the salary conversation comes up or just how great your boss is, whatever it is, these conversations are coming up. So the question to everybody is it really entitlement or is it more entrepreneurial or something else? And the floor is open. Let that sink in for a minute.
We will not get offended with this stuff. So.
No.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't think it's entitlement necessarily. I think that they've been given a lot more in that situation because the Gen Xers worked real hard. So the kids that we're raising were like, we want something a little different from you, for you. I think it's a demand for a better balance. So I'm not going to say entitlement. I think it's demand for a better balance. They want something different out of it, and we've looked quite creatively in the last, probably since 21, when the staffing was really crazy. If you want more promotions, well, we don't care what we title them. So you're a lead front desk person, and you're a guest service manager, and you're a front office manager, and we're going to make you a director of rooms, an AGM. So if that's what's needed out there for us to take more recognition and more responsibility by naming it something different, we're open to that. We looked at differential pay for weekends. You want a better balance, then we should probably pay you more for your weekend time. So maybe that then is Saturdays and Sundays you make this, and Monday through Friday you make this, and it pulls them in to work that busy time in the hotels where they need to. They're being recognized by getting a little bit more money because their time is valuable. So I think that we're creatively looking at how we make it feel that way without being huge impact for operations.
Can I ask one follow-up question to that? Number one, I'm greatly questioning my director title right now, but I do have a question for you. So you were just talking about they're not worried, or creating the titles. How do you handle that in regards to an associated salary increase to those title names?
It's nothing crazy, and it's nothing that we wouldn't do. First of all, we've been very open. We have 34 hotels in our company, and our vice president of operations was very open when that staffing shortage hit. Whatever we haven't done before, we're open to doing. We need to listen to what those things are. So if it is those different levels, and if it's 50 cents and $1 and $1.50 pay grades, well, we're willing to do that without it. And if they're feeling more appreciated by those different levels of titles, and 50 cents or $1 versus $3 an hour and nothing, why wouldn't we look and see how that benefits hotels? So we've been very big on testing it in few markets that are very difficult to recruit in. Columbus, Ohio was a big one for us, as far as we're gonna have to add different elements, different pay rates, but let's try this before we just go do a blanket $2 and $3 increase.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay. I will say that from my experience, I probably have about 20 people that report to me down the line. And one of the things is incorrect setup from colleges. And I'll give you an example. So my career trajectory, if you weren't here at the last partners meetings, I was originally going to be a dentist. Okay? I got the teeth and everything. I was really prepared for it. And it didn't work out. Life happened. But I had this book. I went to Clemson University as my undergrad, and it's copyrighted and everything. And it says if you have this degree, which was a health science degree with a focus in dentistry, you can go do these jobs and make $80,000, $120,000, $60,000. Like, I wasn't that interested in that one. I wanted the high number ones, right? So I was like, well, this isn't going to be that bad if I don't go into dentistry. So I followed that book. First one there was, since I'm born and raised in Georgia, was the Center of Disease Control, or the CDC. According to Clemson's book, I could make $80,000 straight out of college with absolutely no background. Perfect. Go apply, never hear from them at all. So after failing over and over and over again, I literally got slapped in the face by real life compared to what I was told in school that literally is copyrighted. And I was working minimum wage at Banana Republic as my first job with a degree out of college. And it took me 2 years to kind of get my feet to realize that it's more than just an education. You have to apply the experience and learn all those other skills. And so, especially with M3's internship program, one of the very common things that I coach is our review process, we do a self-assessment and then we do the review. Every single self-assessment is, I'm amazing, I'm awesome, I'm great. It's always the top item, right? Like, I'm excellent at everything. And why is that? Think about our school system. When you do exactly what you're told, what grade do you get?
An A.
You get an A. In business, when you do exactly what you're told, what are you considered? Right, you're average. And it's another eye-opening experience, because unless you actually get that experience, or you're trying to make the money on the side, if you don't have an allowance, you have no clue until you get out into the real world. And that's one of the very common things that I coach. So, you know, when it comes to being entitled, it's partly just misconception of what real life is like, because that's how we get groomed into those roles. With any of that background, does anybody want to throw in some other stuff? There you go. Yes, ma'am. There's a mic coming.
I think growing up, a lot of us, especially the older millennials, we had a family where, you know, the dad could go to work and support a family of 4 or 5 people, and now you have to work 3 jobs just to support like 1 kid. So I think the entitlement is that we grew up seeing on TV or seeing from our parents that, you know, one parent could work and support all of this, and now you're realizing that you need to get these higher and higher titles just to be able to afford the same thing, you know, your dad who worked in a factory was able to do.
That's a great example. Anybody else? We have time for one more question on this. All right, back over here. We love the participation. Keep it coming.
I'm kind of like you. I can talk all day.
It's great.
But this, I mean, I'm not sure if it's entitled. I think it's more of a generational gap. This sounds like I was when I was their age with my parents. You know, is the generation entitled? You know, they didn't come like we did. I'm not sure it's entitled. I like what she said. I don't know your name, I apologize. Stacy, it's nice to meet you. I'm Charles. But I think what it is that, you know, we've kind of told our kids, you know, you work hard, you know, if you go to school, you go to college, you're going to get a career, and they see how we've kind of came along. And I think they kind of, and I'm not saying, I think they kind of, you know, they kind of expect the same thing, but I think they want it a little bit faster than kind of what we struggled with. But my parents probably struggled even harder than I did. So I'm not sure it's entitled. I think it's just the way that they look at life. I kind of look at it as, you know, my son's 26, which I said before, and he just got promoted. He didn't mention the raise. He just said, Dad, I got promoted. I'm a senior accountant now. And to me, I think the titles, how they can do things, I think really mean a lot to them.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and those were kind of the themes that I picked up, is definitely getting creative with the titles, showing them that there's career growth in some way, and it's obviously very different with each organization. And it was kind of mentioned at the beginning, but also connecting them to the purpose of why they're there. You know, how are they benefiting the customers that they're servicing?
So with that being said, we'll move into assumption 3, which is narcissistic. Narcissistic, and if you don't know what that was, it essentially just means self-admiration, meaning, you know, sort of like our selfie in the beginning. It's just all about, you know, me, myself, and I, and that's it. So sort of with that being said, and it's sort of funny, I love these 2 photos. That's what it's about. There's nothing else in the photo but themselves. I guess my questions to you about this is, do you see that a lot of times where, you know, and I get it, we are working and we try to work to make a living, but do you see millennials a lot of times only focused about themselves? They don't care about the bigger group. They really could care less if their other employees or other team members are moving up or whatnot. Do you see that a lot of times in the workforce?
I think another way to word that is also loyalty. You know, if you guys have opinion on what you see of the next generations coming up in regards to how loyal they are to a company compared to the generations that have already been there, those type of insights would be great. We have a person up here. Thank you, Tim.
Hi, I don't think it's a narcissistic. I think their self-esteem is a very high. And I'm technically Gen X, but I'm a bit more towards the millennials, so I can see, I think I'm having on the both side. And then when we were grown up, that, you know, our parents, you can do everything if you try hard. Like, so it's like I have my self-esteem, and then, you know, the same thing, like you going to the college, as you said, yes, I got A, and boom. It happened to me first. I thought I'm gonna be a hotel manager because I graduated at the hotel business school, but I started with the front desk agent, right? And then, into learning, but still, like, I always feel like I can do better. So of course, I move it every 2 years to move up. So I think it is not really narcissistic. It's their self-esteem. It's a very high, and that's how the environment tend to put them into that direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, we got a point back here.
Oh, there you are. You're on that side.
Yeah, and this, I kind of come back to something Charles said earlier, which is I don't know, at least personally, I don't know that this is really a generational issue. I think this is kind of the output of that Jack Welch 1990s corporate America, rank 'em and yank 'em. You know, when companies stopped being committed to people's careers, people realized it. And I don't know that this is anything more than the obvious outcome of that. Now everybody else looks at it and says, well, the company doesn't care about me. They're going to get rid of me as soon as that makes sense on a P&L. They're worried about making their quarter. They're worried, you know, they don't care about my career over the next 20 years. So they have to be self-focused because they're not at all convinced that the company is looking out for them or cares about them.
Absolutely. I'll ask a follow-up question for anyone. I guess my biggest thing is, what do we do in the hospitality industry to keep people there, to keep front desk agents there, to keep people in housekeeping? I mean, what are we doing to be able to keep those staffing positions there?
We've kind of had that same discussion like internally, and a lot of our GMs are trying to, I guess, like self-empower the employees, you know, like, so if you are the housekeeper, this is your responsibility, but I don't want you to call me every 5 minutes to ask me how to do it or what to do. So you take care of it, and we'll kind of maybe try to figure things out on the back end if they didn't turn out, but kind of make them feel more powerful in their position, even if they don't necessarily have the title.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. Sort of a short story is when I was an accountant, I was doing journal entries, and I was so nervous to post them. I did not want to post them. I was like, I'm going to post it, and the whole thing's going to just, P&L is going to be ruined by me. And I realized really early on with a mentor that said, just post it. If you post it wrong, you can reverse it. And then you probably won't make that mistake again. I mean, and this is starting out my accounting career, and all I knew is exactly what I knew from school, debits and credits, and they're supposed to equal, and then moving on, right? And so I find a lot, if someone tells me, you know, hey, go ahead and make the mistake because we can fix it. Anything is fixable, you know, especially in the hospitality industry. We work, you know, if the room isn't cleaned perfectly, we can go back and fix the sheets, or we can add the towel we need to. Or if we're working as accountants, you know, okay, maybe the balance sheet didn't tie out to the P&L because we added a new account and it didn't get put in correctly. We can go back and fix it. I always tell my customers when I'm working with them, anything is fixable, especially in accounting. Just how much time and energy are we worth putting towards it? So that's a great point. Is there anyone else to add to that, or any other stories?
So going back, two things. Going back to the narcissistic, I don't think it's a Gen X millennial thing. I think every generation goes through a time in their life when it's all about them. And I think it's a stage of development. You know, in your career early on, it's all about you. But then at some point, you morally develop where it's, you know, no longer all about you. It's, you know, whether it's when you have a kid and you realize the world does not revolve around you, now it revolves around your child. You know? So I don't think it's a single generation. I think it's every generation that goes through that phase. Because my parents probably said the same thing about me, you know, when I came right out of college, because it was all about me. There was nobody else, you know. Who else am I going to care about? And then the next thing you're talking about, how do you keep those people, is it's always been to me to make them see where they fit in the bigger picture. You know, where does your journal entry flow to? Who's affected by what you do? Who's affected by what the housekeeper does? Who's affected? How does that contribute to the overall organization? So I think if you have to show them the meaning in their job, because a lot of times if you're just a cog in a wheel, you're not going to figure it out if you're doing the same thing over and over again. Like if you're a person in an assembly line, if you don't realize how your mistake affects, you know, the final car at the end of the assembly line, you're not going to care. So I think you have to give them a bigger picture of how what they do contributes meaningfully to the organization.
Absolutely. I made a great point. I was thinking, you know, it's almost like if at each hotel, or if you're in the corporate office, like a spider web. You know, like this is our end goal, is that we're, you know, at a hotel. Our end goal is to sell rooms, to get people in those hotel rooms. If you're at the corporate level, it might be to produce that financial statement for this investor and owner. And then how do we all interconnect and how do we all tie? And I just think about it, and I'm visual. I like to see strings. If we had strings attached to them and be like, oh, so when I do something, it's affecting A, B, and C down the line. You know, that could be a possibility, and it would definitely be a cool visual thing you could put in like your little HR, cardboard things.
And I'll actually use an example is that when M3 switched from the waterfall development methodology to Agile, that's exactly what we did. We took up an entire wall with strings explaining the process from beginning to end, and what it actually kind of showed you is where you started circling. And that was a spot that slowed down the progress. And so our goal was to figure out how to literally straighten out those strings in order to be more productive. We have time for one more question.
Awesome. Do we have any more that wants to add to our last thing? Okay. We'll just keep on moving.
All right. So part of my development growing up through the company, I've been mentored by many people at M3. Cassie's one of them, Julie, who's our Chief Human Resources Officer. And I wanted to share some of the stuff that I've learned from them with all of you. You guys have kind of mentioned it about connecting the employees to the company and really showing them that vision. The first one is cross-generational coaching, and this is actually a really cool idea. So if you're a Gen Xer and you're trying to train someone up, pair them with a Zoomer. If you are a boomer, pair them with a millennial. And the reason for that is if you think about your parents and then your grandparents, especially when you're a little kid, what does a little kid want to do? They always want to go to the grandparents because they're cool, the rules are probably a little bit more slack, and they can go enjoy it. And actually in the business world, it's the exact same way. Studies have shown that if you skip a generation when they're learning, they will actually learn more than if you paired them directly with what would be considered their parents in regards to those age ranges. And then as you build trust with one another, it's been mentioned multiple times in this meeting, but it's beginning to understand them and also their communication styles. So the first one, and this is something we actually do at M3, it's called the predictive index, and it literally shows how each person works. One has to do with dominance about whether or not they want to lead a conversation or if they'd rather collaborate on the fly, whether or not they want to make a decision right there or if they need to think about it more. And every employee at M3 has this up at their desk, so if you've never met them before, you can literally get a kind of an immediate snapshot before you go in there and just wrecking ball how they prefer to talk. It's very beneficial. And actually on my team, something that when they're welcome, they're actually given a packet saying, these are your peers, this is how you guys communicate, because you can actually pair the people together and it will tell you, this is how you guys work well together, these are the areas that you need to be careful of because of your different personality types. The next one is DISC, same thing, it's dominance, influence, stability, and conscientiousness. It's a very similar one, M3 did that a while ago. And then also a 16 personalities test. This one is free. You can just Google it, and it's the exact same thing. It will show you all the different types, and it's a really cool exercise to do with your teams. And you'll get to learn how they just think naturally, not how they're having to mold into your rules at the hotels in the process, but literally how they are naturally as a person, and that helps you blend together what you need them to do, along with not having to push them so far out of who they are naturally as well.
Absolutely. And so with that being said, thank you everyone. And now at this point, if, at the end of the day, we will all head to the beach.
And we do need your help. So I will try to be my best Scott as possible. But M3, as you know, is number one. We are, I believe, number 1 and 2 as well with our labor management tool. But according to that's in regards to the hotel tech report. But that is not possible without every single one of you. You are our partners. And this QR code, which you actually can scan with your phone, is part of this process. So what we're asking each of you to do is, as you have the time in between meetings, and this should actually be up in all the meetings kind of at the end of the presentation, but take the time to go ahead and scan this, fill out the information about what you guys think about M3. It'll ask you about the ratings and all that stuff, because we can't be known unless you guys actually participate in it, just like we help participate in these events with you as well. So with all of that, this is Megan, and I'm Darren. Have a good night. Good job.